$3.70 a day. The coffee money, the rounding error is the EVHD. That's it, and 70 cents. That's it. That's the entire premise of this video. Not 3,700, not 3.5 medium coffee you'll forget about by lunch. The amount that vanishes from your account so quietly you've never once in your entire life mourned its loss. And I'm about to show you something that sounds like a lie but isn't. That same $3.70 a day, the coffee money, the rounding error, the amount so small it feels insulting to even talk about can quietly turn into a genuinely life-changing sum of money. Not through anything clever, no stock picking, no crypto, no secret, just one boring mechanism and a lot of patience. And the final number at the end of this video is going to be bigger than you're expecting, so stick around for it. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, and specifically about the tiny invisible amounts that everyone ignores precisely because they seem too small to matter. This is one of them. And if this changes how you look at your coffee, a like genuinely helps it reach someone else. Alright, $3.70, let's follow it. First, the one idea this whole thing depends on, and if you get this, you get everything. When you invest that $3.70, you are not really buying an investment. You are buying time. Because money that's invested doesn't just sit there, it earns a little. And then here's the magic, the part that breaks people's brains. The next year, you earn money not just on what you put in, but also on what you already earned. Your growth starts growing, your returns start having returns. It's a snowball rolling downhill, picking up more snow, which makes it bigger, which picks up even more snow. This is compounding, and it is the single most powerful force in all of personal finance. And almost nobody actually feels how powerful it is until they see it laid out. Because a human brain thinks in straight lines, 1 + 1 + 1. But compounding doesn't move in a straight line, it curves. Slowly at first, so slowly it's boring, and then violently, almost unbelievably at the end. And that gap between what your brain expects and what actually happens is where all the money hides. So let's make it real. $3.70 a day is about $112 a month. Round it, call it a bit over $1,300 a year going into a simple, boring, low-cost investment that tracks the whole market. Now, I have to be honest with you before we go one step further, because I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. The market does not go up in a smooth, pretty line. Some years it soars, some years it drops hard and sits there and makes you feel sick. Nobody can promise you a specific return, and anyone who does is lying to you. But over long stretches of history, a broad market investment has tended to average out to something in the range of a decent annual return once you zoom out far enough. So for this video, I'm going to use a reasonable, illustrative long-term average purely to show you the shape of what compounding does. It's a demonstration, not a promise. Keep that in your head the whole way through. Okay, now watch what happens to your coffee money. Year 5. You've put in a little under $7,000 of your own money, and your account is worth somewhere a bit north of that, and honestly, it's underwhelming. This is the part nobody posts about. 5 years of discipline, 5 years of quietly redirecting your coffee money, and the growth on top is modest. A few $100s. This is the stage where most people quit because it feels like nothing is happening. The snowball is still small, it's barely rolling, and this is exactly the moment you have to understand what's actually going on, because it's not that compounding isn't working, it's that compounding is quietly loading up, and the payoff lives at the far end, not here. Year 10. Now you've contributed around $13,000 to $14,000 of your own money over the decade, but the account is worth noticeably more than that. The growth is no longer a rounding error, it's becoming a real chunk. And here's the first moment it gets interesting. The money your money made is starting to pull real weight. You're now earning returns on a decade of contributions, plus all the growth that piled up on top of them. The snowball has some size to it now. It's rolling on its own a little. You barely notice it in your daily life, still just $3.70 a day, still the coffee you skip. But underneath, the machine has started to hum. Year 20. This is where people's jaws start to drop. You've personally contributed somewhere around $26,000 or $27,000 total over 20 years. That's it. That's all the coffee money. But the account? It's now worth multiples of what you put in. The growth has officially overtaken your contributions. Read that again because it's the whole point. More than half of the money in that account is no longer money you put there. It's money the money made. You crossed an invisible line somewhere back there, the line where the snowball got bigger than the hand that's been pushing it. From this point on, the account is doing more of the work than you are. Year 30. Here's your number. After 30 years of nothing but $3.70 a day, your total out-of-pocket was around $40,000, spread so thin across 3 decades you never once felt it. And the account, using that reasonable illustrative average, has grown into a sum well into the low to mid 6 figures. From coffee money. Sit with that for a second. Roughly $40,000 of actual coffee money became something several times larger, and the difference, that enormous gap, was not you. It was time. It was compounding. It was the snowball you started rolling 30 years ago, and mostly just left alone. You didn't get lucky. You didn't pick a winner. You just started, and then you didn't stop, and then you didn't touch it. And here's the twist that reframes the entire thing. Look at where the money actually came from. The vast majority of that final number is not your contributions. Most of it is growth, and most of that growth happened in the last third of the journey. The curve is brutal at the start and explosive at the end, which means the single most valuable dollar you will ever invest is the first one, because it's the one with the most time to compound. And the cruelest, most important truth in all of this is simple. The person who starts at 25 and stops at 35, contributing for only 10 years and then never adding another cent, often ends up with more than the person who starts at 35 and contributes faithfully for 30. Same discipline. Wildly different outcome. The only variable was time. Starting early beats trying hard. Every single time. Quick pause, because this next part is the part that actually determines whether any of this works for you. If this is landing, drop a comment and tell me one thing you spend around $3.70 on without thinking. I'm genuinely curious what everyone's coffee actually is. And a like helps this reach the next person who needs to see that curve. Okay, back to it. So what actually kills this? Because plenty of people know about compounding and still end up with nothing. There are exactly two enemies, and they're both quiet. The first enemy is waiting. Every year you delay is a year stolen off the front of the snowball, and because of that brutal curve, the years you lose at the start are the most expensive years you'll ever lose. Waiting 5 years to start doesn't cost you 5 years of contributions. It can cost you a massive slice of the final number because those early dollars were the ones with the most time to grow. Procrastination is, mathematically, the single most expensive financial habit there is, and it disguises itself as harmless. The second enemy is touching it. The whole thing only works if you leave it completely alone and let the snowball roll. The person who panics when the market drops and pulls their money out, or who dips in every couple of years for something they wanted, breaks the machine. They interrupt the compounding right when it was about to do its best work. You cannot unring the bell of a snowball you stopped rolling. Start early and don't touch it. That's the whole game. Everything else is noise. Now the honest part, because you deserve it. That final number is an illustration, not a guarantee. Real markets are messy. There will be scary years. Inflation will quietly shrink what that number can actually buy decades from now, so the real-world purchasing power is smaller than the raw figure looks, and your actual result depends on things nobody can predict. So please don't hear this as invest $3.70 and you're definitely rich. Here it is this, which is the part that's actually true no matter what the markets do. Small, consistent amounts, invested early and left alone for a very long time, do something that feels almost impossible when you first see it. That principle holds even when the exact number doesn't. The shape is real even if the specific figure moves. So here's the reframe to walk away with. The barrier was never the $3.70. You were never actually too broke to start. The coffee money was always there, invisible, slipping away every single day into things you don't remember. The only real barrier the entire time was starting. That's it. That's the whole secret that a whole industry works hard to make sound more complicated than it is. And the beautiful, slightly annoying truth is that the best possible day to start rolling that snowball was years ago, and the second best day, the only one you actually have any control over, is today. So let's make it stupidly simple to actually do. First, don't try to find $3.70 through willpower every day, because you'll fail. Everyone fails at that. Instead, set up one automatic transfer, $112 a month, moving on its own into a simple, low-cost, broad market fund the day after you get paid, before you can feel it leave. You make the decision once, and then it runs without you. Second, make it genuinely boring. You do not need to pick stocks. You do not need to watch the market. Boring and automatic beats clever and inconsistent every single time. And third, and this is the hard one, forget it exists. Set it up, and then let the snowball roll for years without interfering. The less you touch it, the better it works. Which might be the only investment strategy in history where doing nothing is the advanced technique. So the next time you're standing there about to spend $3.70 on the coffee you'll forget by noon, you don't have to skip it. That's not the point, and life's too short to be miserable about a coffee. The point is just to finally see that number for what it always was. Not a small, meaningless amount. A tiny, invisible seed that planted early enough and left alone long enough quietly grows into something that could change the shape of your entire life. You've seen the curve now, you can't unsee it. Quick reminder that I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice, just a look at what a very old, very boring principle actually does over time. If this made you look at your coffee a little differently, a like and a share genuinely help. And I'd love to know in the comments if today's the day you set up that transfer. I'll see you in the next one.